Have you ever wondered what would happen if you could see the future? Imagine knowing exactly what's coming, the triumphs and the heartaches, the moments of joy and inevitable loss. What if the key to understanding time wasn't about controlling it, but about experiencing it all at once, past, present, and future, woven together like an endless loop? This is the story of Dr. Claire Anderson, a brilliant linguist who's thrust into an extraordinary situation. Alien visitors, the Syntar, arrive on Earth, bringing with them a language that could change humanity's understanding of reality itself. Their gift? A language that unlocks the ability to see time in its entirety. But with this knowledge comes an unsettling question: if you could see the future, could you change it? Or are we all bound by destiny? And what happens when you know the one thing that can't be avoided: loss? Could you live fully, knowing everything that awaits you? Stick around, because the answers may challenge everything you thought you knew about life, time, and choice. In the heart of a dimly lit library, Dr. Claire Anderson sat hunched over a desk, her fingers lightly brushing the edges of ancient manuscripts. Her eyes, sharp and focused, absorbed the elegant, mysterious scripts that had eluded scholars for centuries. The silence around her was broken only by the occasional rustle of pages turning as she searched for a deeper understanding of lost languages. Her passion for the forgotten tongues of civilizations long past filled the room with an air of reverence, as if the very walls were whispering secrets of the ancient world. The warm glow of the desk lamp illuminated her face, casting long shadows on the rows of books behind her, creating an atmosphere of contemplation. Yet, the tranquility was abruptly shattered by a sudden ring of her phone, the sound piercing through the calm like a jarring alarm. Her heart skipped a beat as she glanced at the screen. It was a government official. The weight of the call seemed to hang in the air. With a steady hand, she picked up the receiver, listening intently as the voice on the other end quickly relayed the urgent news. Mysterious alien spacecraft had appeared in various parts of the world. They called themselves the Syntar. The words felt surreal, as though they were drifting through a fog. But then, reality set in. Her expertise in language had led to this moment. The world was on the brink of an unprecedented event. The need for her to decipher the Syntar's language was urgent. The call ended, leaving an unsettling silence that seemed to echo through the room. The air felt charged now, as though the universe itself had shifted, beckoning Claire towards something monumental. The sky above the world's most bustling cities was no longer just the familiar canvas of clouds and stars. Instead, it was dominated by enormous, dark ships. Their presence was impossible to ignore. These floating giants seemed to defy the laws of physics, their sleek, metallic surfaces reflecting the sunlight in strange, shimmering patterns. They hovered motionless, casting long, oppressive shadows over the ground, as if they were watching, observing the lives of those beneath them. A rhythmic hum resonated from the ships, a sound that was otherworldly, almost musical in nature, yet carrying an eerie quality that sent chills down the spine. The vibration pulsed through the air, vibrating the very atmosphere. It was as though the very sound was alive, sentient, an alien invitation, perhaps, or a warning. The people on the ground stood frozen, their eyes wide with fear and fascination. In the cities, chaos had erupted. Some ran in fear, while others looked upward in awe. captivated by the enormity of the unknown hovering above them. No one knew whether these ships were a message of peace or the harbingers of war. The air was thick with tension as governments scrambled to understand the true nature of the threat or opportunity that had appeared without warning. Dr. Claire Anderson arrived at the military base under the cover of dusk, the base shrouded in a heavy fog that seemed to mirror the confusion and uncertainty surrounding the event. The moment she stepped out of the vehicle, the weight of the unknown pressed down on her. The sharp, metallic smell of the air mixed with the distant echoes of soldiers shouting orders. Claire made her way through the chaos, her mind racing with 1,000 questions, each one more unsettling than the last. Inside the high-security facility, scientists and military personnel worked tirelessly, their faces pale and drawn from long hours of uncertainty. The Syntar had made contact, or rather, they had sent an invitation, and it was now Claire's task to translate the unspoken, to interpret what had never been meant for human understanding. The situation was fragile, teetering on the edge of disaster. One wrong interpretation could ignite a global conflict. But Claire, with her gift for languages, might just hold the key to unlocking the mystery. As the hum of the ships resonated in the distance, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The Syntar had come not just to communicate, but perhaps to change everything, to reveal a new chapter in the history of humanity. The question remained, what did they want, and were they truly here to help, or destroy? The room was dimly lit, the hum of computers and low murmurs of scientists filling the air, but Claire's focus was on the projection screen that now glowed in front of her. It displayed shifting patterns, impossible to categorize into any human linguistic framework. Each symbol, unlike anything from Earth, seemed to pulse with its own rhythm, a visual language that danced before her eyes. There were no straight lines, no rigid rules of grammar or structure. The symbols twisted and spiraled, converging and diverging in unpredictable ways. Claire leaned closer to the screen, her heart racing with both excitement and unease. The symbols were circular, a mix of overlapping shapes that glowed with an ethereal light. The patterns didn't seem to follow a traditional sequence. One symbol didn't lead to the next, but seemed to exist in its own space, separate yet interconnected with the others. As her mind processed the patterns, she began to feel as though the symbols themselves were not just static images, but were alive, breathing, shifting in response to her thoughts. Each shape, each curve seemed to have meaning beyond language, a meaning that transcended mere communication. These symbols weren't just words, they were concepts, feelings, fragments of perception, frozen in time. She looked at the shapes, trying to analyze them from a human perspective, but something in her gut told her that understanding the Syntar language wasn't about finding the right word for an object or action. It was about perception itself. These weren't just symbols, they were snapshots of an experience, each one containing an entire universe of meaning, impossible to break down with the linear understanding of language. She stared, almost mesmerized, as the symbols started to weave together into patterns of thought, something beyond syntax, a language that spoke directly to the mind. But there was a deeper layer to it all, something that made Claire's pulse quicken. As her understanding deepened, she realized the Syntar weren't merely trying to communicate, they were offering something far greater. Their language had the power to change not just how humanity understood each other, but how they understood time itself. These symbols weren't arranged in a sequence, they were outside of time, a reflection of an existence where the past, present, and future were always one. The more Claire dove into the alien language, the more she felt herself slipping into a strange, fluid space. At first, it was just a sensation like the world around her was shifting, warping. But then it became something far more tangible, a vision, sharp and vivid, like a dream that didn't belong to the past, but instead, the future. She saw herself older, different somehow. Her hands, once steady, now trembled as she held a piece of the Syntar's language in her grasp. She wasn't just looking at it, she was feeling it. She could sense the pulse of the symbols, and in an instant, she knew what would happen next. She wasn't merely experiencing her past and present, but was seeing her future unfold, bit by bit, in vivid flashes. Time wasn't just an abstract concept anymore. It wasn't a line moving from left to right, marked by the ticking of a clock. It curved, like a circular pattern, interwoven, where every moment connected to the next, and the next one connected to the ones before and after. She began to feel as though the past, the present, and the future were all there, at once, hanging in the air before her. In one vision, Claire watched herself stand in the same room, surrounded by the Syntar's language, speaking to them, but not in words. She could see her future self in that moment, understanding everything, communicating without needing to say anything aloud. The symbols she was now deciphering had given her the gift of perceiving time as the Syntar did, without beginning or end, just as a whole, eternally intertwined. The visions started to blur, and the sensation of timelessness grew overwhelming. Claire saw moments from her childhood, where she had made decisions that had shaped her entire life, and yet, they were no longer memories, they were still happening. She could feel the warmth of her mother's hand holding hers, the smell of the earth after rain, the laughter of friends. They weren't gone, but present, flowing alongside the now and what was yet to come. Then, a darker vision emerged, her daughter, standing in the doorway, just a child, looking at her with eyes full of trust. Claire reached out, but the girl faded, a brief flash of a life that hadn't yet come to pass. She felt a sharp pang in her chest. The future was already known, but could it be changed? The Syntar's language was unlocking a door, one that allowed Claire to witness her own existence, not as a linear progression of events, but as a vast network, an ever-expanding web where every action, every decision was connected in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. She realized that time wasn't something that was passed through, but something that could be lived all at once, as if each moment existed in its entirety, forever unfolding. The air in the room grew thick, as if charged with something unseen. Claire sat before the Syntar not in physical form, but as patterns of shifting light and sound, an ethereal presence that defied all conventional understanding. Their language, once a baffling mix of symbols, now seemed to resonate directly with her mind. She could hear their voices, not through her ears, but through her very thoughts, speaking in a rhythm that felt both alien and familiar. Through their communication, Claire began to grasp the profound nature of their message. The Syntar's purpose was not conquest, nor was it a declaration of war. They had not come to Earth with weapons or hostility. Instead, They had arrived to offer a gift, one that held the potential to change the way humanity saw the world, and time itself. The Syntar spoke of their view of time, a concept not confined to the linear progression that humans experienced, but something vast, circular, and endless loop of existence. To them, time was not a river flowing from past to future, it was a wheel, eternally turning, where the past, present, and future all existed simultaneously, each moment feeding into the next. Their language, they explained, was the key to unlocking this understanding. With the knowledge of their language, humans could break free from their traditional, finite perception of time. Death, loss, birth, and rebirth would no longer be seen as separate, isolated events, but as an interconnected web of experiences, where every moment was tied to every other moment, forever. The Syntar weren't offering control over time itself, but a new perspective, one that would allow humanity to perceive life in its wholeness, the beauty, the pain, the fleeting, and the eternal, all at once. Claire felt the weight of the message settling deep within her. It was overwhelming, a truth that was too vast to fully comprehend. And yet, there was something profoundly beautiful about it, something that resonated deeply with her own quest for knowledge. But at the same time, there was an undeniable sense of fear, for with such knowledge came the burden of seeing time as the Syntar did. Would it make life richer, or would it strip away the mystery, the very essence of what it meant to live? Her thoughts were interrupted as the Syntar's message continued, their voice reverberating like a distant echo, urging her to teach humanity this gift. But Claire couldn't shake the fear that such knowledge might come at a cost, perhaps one too great for humanity to bear. As the Syntar's message spread across the globe, a wave of panic swept through nations. Governments and military forces, unsure of the true intentions of these alien visitors, began to tighten their grip. Across the world, military readiness increased. In the darkened halls of power, leaders debated, discussed, and, in some cases, misunderstood the Syntar's message. The news was filled with conflicting reports. Some hailed the Syntar as benevolent beings offering a profound gift, while others claimed the aliens were manipulating humanity, preparing for an invasion disguised as peace. Fear turned to paranoia, and national defense systems were put on high alert, while borders were fortified. Some nations began preparing for war, convinced that the Syntar's offer was a ploy, a cover for something darker, something that would ultimately bring about humanity's downfall. Claire, now more deeply immersed in her connection with the Syntar, was torn. She understood their true intent: peace, understanding, and elevation of human consciousness. But how could she convey that to a world so steeped in fear and suspicion? Her warnings fell on deaf ears as leaders, unable to see the Syntar beyond their own anxieties, dismissed her arguments as naive. The world was on the brink of disaster. Claire watched as the situation escalated. Nations that once stood united were now divided, each interpreting the Syntar's arrival as a threat. Military forces were mobilized, and tensions ran high, not just between countries, but between the very citizens of those nations who now feared the aliens, each one looking for signs of betrayal. Claire stood in a war room, surrounded by generals and officials, the tension in the air thick enough to be cut with a knife. She could see the fear in their eyes, but also the blindness, their inability to see beyond their own limited perceptions. They were looking for danger, for a threat, rather than a message of understanding. The Syntar's gift could heal the fractures in humanity's worldview, but if the message was misinterpreted, it could tear the world apart. She realized, with a growing sense of dread, that she might not be able to change the course of history. Without the ability to communicate the true purpose of the Syntar, the human race was heading toward conflict not with the aliens, but with itself. Time itself seemed to be spiraling toward chaos, and Claire felt powerless to stop it. The hum of military machines, the tense voices of world leaders arguing, and the growing rift between those who sought peace and those who saw only danger, it all swirled around her, and for the first time, Claire wondered if humanity was truly ready for the knowledge the Syntar had brought. Could the world ever understand the language of time? Or was it too late to prevent the unraveling of everything she held dear? Claire sat in her dimly lit office, the only light coming from the flickering computer screen in front of her. The Syntar's language, now decoded in her mind, had opened something she wasn't prepared for. It was as if the very fabric of time had unraveled, revealing glimpses of moments she hadn't yet lived. Her breath caught in her chest as she was pulled into one of the visions. A small girl, no older than 5, was running toward her with a bright smile on her face. The sound of the child's laughter echoed through her mind. It was so vivid, so real, Claire could almost feel the warmth of the girl's tiny hand in hers. But Claire didn't have a daughter. Not now. Not yet. The vision continued. The child grew older, and Claire saw herself teaching her to read, laughing together as they shared stories. They were moments of pure joy, fleeting yet beautiful, filled with a deep sense of connection and love. Claire could feel the happiness in her chest, the tenderness in her heart. These moments felt like memories, but they weren't. They hadn't happened yet. And then, the flash turned cold. The child, now a young woman, was lying in a hospital bed. The pale, almost translucent skin, the quiet beep of the machines, and the sorrowful gaze of Claire standing beside her. Her heart twisted with grief as she realized the truth. The girl in the bed, her daughter, wasn't just a figure of her past. She wasn't a dream. Claire could see it all: the pain, the loss, the inevitable fate that awaited her. This was the future. The visions became more frequent. Each time, Claire was torn between two worlds, the one she was living in and the one that would inevitably come. The memory of her daughter's smile lingered like a weight on her soul, haunting her. She could see their life together, moments she hadn't lived yet, but knew would come. And yet, she couldn't stop them. No matter how hard she tried, the future was already written. With each vision, the crushing reality set in: her daughter would die, and she would live through it, knowing the loss in advance. The pain of the future became the present, and Claire's heart shattered a little more each time. The paradox was too much to bear. She was forced to witness something she couldn't change, something she didn't want to face, yet it was inevitable. What did it mean to love something you knew you would lose? Claire stood alone in the dimly lit room, the weight of the Syntar's language pressing down on her like a heavy shroud. The alien symbols swirled in her mind, each one a doorway to a new understanding, and yet, as she grasped their meaning, something darker began to take root. She couldn't escape the thought that had been growing inside her: if she could see the future, could she change it? Was it possible to alter the course of her life, or was everything, every decision, already determined? The more she decoded the Syntar's language, the more her mind became unmoored from the idea of time as a simple, linear progression. Time wasn't just a straight line anymore, it was a tangled web, stretching in all directions. She looked at the visions of her daughter, the moments she had yet to live, the grief she would inevitably face. It was as if the Syntar had unlocked the truth of existence. Time was fluid, not fixed. The past, present, and future were woven together in a way she had never before understood. But with this knowledge came a terrifying question: was it all predestined? Claire's heart pounded in her chest as the question lingered. If she could see her future, know what would happen, what did that mean for the choices she made now? Was she choosing to live her life in this moment, or was she simply playing her part in a script that had already been written? The realization gripped her: there were no secrets anymore. The illusion of choice shattered. Her decisions weren't hers alone. They were intertwined with the flow of time, with the symbols of the Syntar's language. Her future actions were connected to the past and the future in ways she couldn't control. She could no longer look at her decisions as isolated events, but as pieces of a greater whole. Claire's hands trembled as she thought of her daughter again. Would she hold her, knowing that one day, she would have to let her go? Would she cherish every moment, knowing it would slip through her fingers like sand? Or was she already too far down the path to stop it? Each step she took, each action she made, felt like it was leading her toward the inevitable. The future was unavoidable. But was it still hers to choose? Claire felt a deep sense of dread building inside her. She had always believed that free will was the essence of being human, that the future was shaped by the choices made in the present. But now, the more she understood the Syntar's language, the more it felt as if she were a puppet, her strings pulled by the very fabric of time itself. The weight of destiny pressed down on her. She knew the fate that awaited her and her daughter. It wasn't a future she could change. It was already written, etched in the timeless patterns of the Syntar's language. And in that knowledge, she felt a deep sorrow. If the future was already determined, then was there any point in trying to change it? Or was it just a matter of living through the moments, knowing that nothing would ever be different? The choice, Claire realized, wasn't whether she could change the future, but whether she could find peace in the knowledge that time was a circle, and that no matter how many times it turned, it would always bring her back to the same place. The walls of the dimly lit room seemed to close in around Claire as she sat before the final piece of the Syntar's language. The hum of the alien symbols filled the air, vibrating with a sense of anticipation. The symbols had been elusive, like fleeting shadows in the corner of her mind, but now they were starting to align, to form a pattern that her mind could grasp. It was as if she had reached the final threshold of understanding, the last puzzle piece falling into place. Claire's breath hitched as the final symbol flickered into focus. It was not like any of the others. The circular shapes spun, interlocking, and flowing into one another like the endless cycles of time itself. The energy in the room shifted, growing stronger, more intense. She felt the Syntar's presence, not just as a distant intelligence, but as something deeply connected to her, as though the very fabric of their existence was woven into the core of her being. The connection deepened, And Claire suddenly understood, the language wasn't just a tool for communication, it was a gateway to perceiving time as the Syntar did. The knowledge she had gained, the intricate dance of symbols and sound, was not simply an exchange of information. It was a transformation of perception. The Syntar spoke to her directly in her mind, their message clear. "You now see time as we do," they conveyed. Their words didn't come in sentences, but as concepts, deeply felt, impossible to mistake. What you gain from this knowledge will reshape humanity's understanding of existence. You will know the future, the past, and the present all at once. You will see how each moment is part of a greater whole, how each action ripples through the tapestry of time. But be warned, with this knowledge comes loss. The inevitable pain, the heartache, and the tragedy that will come will not fade from your mind. You will see them, clearly and fully. But you will also have the power to stop the conflicts that tear humanity apart. You will understand, truly understand, the interconnectedness of all life. Claire sat still, her mind reeling. This power to see time in its entirety, to know the future, it was more than she could ever have imagined. But at what cost? The Syntar had warned her. This gift was both a blessing and a curse. To know the future meant to understand its pain, its loss, and the inevitable heartbreak. Could humanity bear such a burden? The weight of it all pressed down on her chest. She could feel the knowledge in her bones, how time could stretch and bend, how life and death were part of the same cycle, constantly overlapping. Claire knew that what the Syntar had shown her wasn't just about seeing the end of things. It was about understanding that everything is connected, that no moment stands alone. As the news of the Syntar's peaceful message spread, the world began to shift. Governments, initially fearful and distrustful, now turned to Claire. Her voice, once ignored, was now the beacon of understanding. She spoke with unwavering conviction to the leaders of the world, urging them to trust in the Syntar's intent, to embrace the knowledge that had been offered not as a threat, but as a gift. The tension that had gripped the globe began to dissipate, like a storm passing after the darkest night. Nations that had been on the brink of war started to come together, united by a common understanding of the Syntar's message. The power of time, the interconnectedness of all things, was no longer just a distant concept, it was now an undeniable truth that humanity had the capacity to grasp. Claire herself felt the weight of the knowledge she carried. She knew the future, the pain that awaited her, the loss she would have to endure. But something had shifted inside her. Knowing the future didn't take away from its beauty. If anything, it gave her the ability to live more fully. Every precious moment became more meaningful. Even the pain, the inevitable sorrow, was part of the beautiful, intricate tapestry of life. In the final scene, Claire walked toward her daughter. She knew the path that lay ahead: her daughter's smile, her laughter, the days they would share, and the heartbreaking loss she would one day face. But as she reached out to embrace her child, she felt a profound peace. The knowledge of the future no longer burdened her. It empowered her to live in the now, to embrace each moment fully, without fear of what was to come. Claire smiled as she hugged her daughter. The future laid before her like a vast, open landscape. The journey would be difficult, but it was her journey. And she would walk it with grace, knowing that every step, every moment, was part of a larger whole, a whole that was both beautiful and tragic, timeless and fleeting. As Claire delves deeper into the Syntar's language, she uncovers the truth about time, a truth that intertwines every moment of existence, both beautiful and tragic. The power to see the future isn't just about understanding, it's about learning to live in the present, no matter what pain or joy lies ahead. So, what does that mean for us? If we knew our future, would we still make the same choices? What if time wasn't a line, but a circle, always connected, always in motion? Could we handle that kind of knowledge? And, if you had the chance to see your future, would you? Think about it, and leave a comment with your thoughts. What would you do if you could see the future? Would it empower you, or would it shackle you? And as we explore deeper, the Syntar's message may hold even more surprises for us. What's next for humanity when we finally learn to perceive time as they do? Let us dive into that next.